The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, nothing about the government's modified plans for the Glaze report announced this morning does anything to address the dismay there is across Nova Scotia about the loss of local elected school board voices and their replacement with a super-centralized bureaucracy in Halifax. Mr. Speaker, given how badly his super-centralization has worked out for patients in health care, can the Premier explain how eliminating local voices will make any meaningful improvement for kids in schools?
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, again, I want to encourage the honourable member to read the report and have a chance to look at the bill. As a matter of fact, what happens is we're giving more decision-making to education leads in schools, and quite frankly, we're asking community members to continue to work on the SACs across this province, which many have been, Mr. Speaker. What we're going to provide in this bill is an opportunity for some funding for them to make decisions that impact the individual children and the learning environment that they're in. At the same time, administrators will manage and lead the schools across this province from an educational point of view to ensure that it reflects the reality of the communities they're in.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, what I'm speaking about is elected local voices, and it is difficult to understand why the government should have such a difficult time to fathom why this is a matter of such concern to people across the province. Elected local voices. Consider Jennifer Raven from the Halifax Regional School Board. Through her efforts, amongst other things, every morning now in Halifax area schools there is a land acknowledgement, and there is the first report on racism and discrimination through her has been initiated in Halifax schools. Ms. Raven reports in the media today that she's afraid her work's being tossed aside. Why wouldn't she be afraid her work is being tossed aside? That's exactly what's happening to her and the other members of the school boards.
The Honourable Premier.
Is there a question?
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Go ahead.
Why would Ms. Raven not feel tossed aside, given exactly the treatment the Premier and his government have given to her and other members of the school board?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for the question. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank not only Ms. Raven, but all school board members across the province who have been working on behalf of students in this province. The fact of the matter is the administrative model has not worked. We've heard from teachers, we've heard from administrators, Mr. Speaker, that the current structure was not working. We hired someone to come in to do a report. They provided a path forward. Mr. Speaker, one of those recommendations was the elimination of school boards in a fractured system across this province. We've embraced it. There were other recommendations that we took out, and we talked to school communities, we talked to administrators, we talked to teachers. They've been adjusted to reflect some of the concerns that we had, but we believe we have in place now, and we will after this bill passed, an administrative model that will allow us to implement the recommendations that will come from the inclusion report that will really impact students and classrooms across this province. And I'm looking forward to working with educators to ensure we just do just that.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party on his final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, it is precisely the impact and benefit and lack of benefit on kids in classrooms that is at issue. I was moved by a recent email from a young teacher, Ria Tebow. She writes, "I'm not strong enough to endure the hate that the government continually spews at me. I'm so proud of what I do and accomplish in the class, but I can't support my students if the government doesn't allow me to do my job to the best of my abilities." Mr. Speaker, the education changes being proposed do not do one thing for the situation of kids in classrooms Ms. Tebow is writing about. So here's the question. How dare the Premier present the wiping out of local voices as though that were an answer to the desperate challenges experienced by the teachers in Nova Scotia?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member, and I want to communicate directly to Ms. Tebow. Mr. Speaker, this piece of legislation today will eliminate all the barriers between the Minister of Education and her classroom, and I want to assure Ms. Tebow and all teachers across this province this government has heard what they've said about their classroom. When the recommendations on inclusion are announced, Mr. Speaker, our budget will reflect our commitment, and we'll have an ongoing commitment with teachers across this province to address the very issue they've talked about, which is inclusion. And this bill will give us a direct path to their classroom to work directly with them.